I am here joined by Congressman Issa, who's the ranking Republican on the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee, in that capacity involved with both of these stories, both the Bank of America story and Toyota. But let me start with Bank of America. First of all, your reaction to word that, A, the SEC has settled, or at least reached an agreement with Bank of America over the disclosure issues regarding Merrill Lynch, and further, that the New York Attorney General is suing Ken Lewis and Joe Price, the former CFO.
Well, certainly we think bringing closure to the civil part of this case is appropriate. It's been well vetted, and I think there's a good understanding of what happened and didn't happen. It's a little harder on the criminal side. I think here we want to reserve judgment. We haven't seen specific reasons for a criminal indictment, but we don't want to prejudge that.
You've looked at some of this information. You've had your own questions about the disclosure issues, whether executives did the right thing. Have you reached your own conclusion on that and the conduct of Mr. Lewis, for example? Well,
I believe that without government intervention, the outcome would have been different. So I think that it's pretty clear that government pushed and prodded, and if ultimately there's a criminal charge, one of my unindicted co-conspirators are going to be those who pushed to have Ken and others essentially not disclose. So it's going to be interesting to follow this, because we certainly appreciate the process, but we also know that the federal government was there at the table pushing. They say not using undue influence, but they were pretty powerful at the table as to not wanting to have this deal reconsidered or publicly discussed.
Bank of America has said in its statement today in response to this, look, the SEC had a chance to look at this, did not make the same conclusion the New York Attorney General does. They're planning to fight this.
They are, and we want to reserve judgment, but I will tell you, in our own investigation, we were much more critical of the federal government's role in encouraging non-disclosure, and to me, that's really the question that the New York Attorney General should be looking at is, are they really bringing the right people in if ultimately their misconduct, if there was some, was based on the essentially pressure from Washington, because that would essentially mean that Washington's the unindicted co-conspirator.
Let me switch gears with you, if I could. Toyota, your committee also investigating that. Your reaction to word that the government is now investigating the Prius as well and safety concerns there?
Well, we welcome that. We certainly think that for more than a decade, our oversight in the federal bureaucracy in NHTSA has been a little bit asleep at the wheel. We see a series of events with Toyota and, quite frankly, other auto companies that have not been aggressively followed and brought to a successful conclusion. And that's one of the reasons we're going back not just to the Prius, but we're really looking at Lexus back in the 90s. But let's make one thing very clear. It's not about Toyota. It's about the question of all auto companies. Is the oversight aggressive, and is it in a proper way bringing safety to a quality circle quickly? It's very clear it hasn't so far.
So the focus of the investigation is more aimed at federal regulators than it is the company specifically?
Absolutely. If we didn't know, if nobody knew that Toyota had problems going back into the 90s and 2003 and more recently, then we could say, well, Toyota was hiding it. But it's very clear that these problems were brought to the attention of our agency, and that agency did not ensure that the fixes occurred until, quite frankly, until it came up on the news.
All right, Congressman Darrell Issa on short notice. Thanks for the time. We appreciate it as always.